Fellow of the Institute of Chinese Studies. And today we are delighted to have Dr. Yinghong Huang, who is an associate professor at the Jindal Global Law School here in Haryana. But currently he is in, I understand, Shenzhen, where he has been spending the last few months as we have been under lockdown. But he has been active because teaching has not stopped during this period. And I understand he's already teaching as a full teaching schedule during this term. I'd read a lot of Yinghong's work earlier. My first meeting with him, I think, was in the restaurant dining rooms of Sun Yat-sen University in Wondro a few years ago, where I was also acquainted with his extensive scholarship on Gandhi, which some of you may be aware of, and which I'm sure also influences his approach to the subject that we have here today. The structure of today's talk would be that I'll spend a few minutes introducing him and the subject. Then he takes over and speaks for about 30-35 minutes. And then we open up the webinar for questions. Ideally speaking, if you could post your questions, that would be very helpful, because we could then, as and when the questions come during the talk, you could start posting them and we can start taking them up as and when the talk concludes. That will both help us put a group of questions together and also help us call upon you to ask your questions as it goes forward. Yinghong, of course, is somebody who is quite special, because I'm sure he's among the few Chinese scholars who are part of faculty at a major Indian university, which now I understand is also an Institute of Eminence. He did his early studies in Xiamen and then his doctoral degree from Sun Yat-sen University. And he has taught there. He's been has been a visiting scholar at the Harvard Yenching Institute, also at the National Institute of Singapore, and at Jadavpur University and Delhi University, and indeed at the Institute of Chinese Studies itself about 6-7 years ago. Is that right, Yinghong? About 2013?
Yeah, 2014, yeah.
Yes. And he's also studied, he's been an emerging scholar at another institution which looks at these issues, the India-China Institute of the New School in New York. As I said, he's undertaken a major translation project, which is the selected works of Mahatma Gandhi to be published in Chinese. And he has written extensively on the issue that he has been speaking today, which is on land acquisition. The issue of land acquisition itself is, of course, something that is seen as central to the difference of the development trajectories of India and China. And in some senses, that's in the popular discourse. And in some senses, a lot of the progress of China is attributed to its ability to, in some sense, almost acquire land at will, as compared to the complicated processes that have to be undergone in India. The reality, of course, is
I think it's dropped out a little bit.
Yeah.
If you could just maybe just give him maybe half a minute to get back.
as people who work on these issues. Yes, Yinghong, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here now.
Sure. As I was briefly saying before we lost connection, the process of land acquisition in China has quite a high degree of variation across different provinces. And even within provinces, because when local governments do it within the province, there's a fair degree of variation. That degree of variation is perhaps less in India, but there is still a considerable degree of variation that is there across states. And especially the discussion in India has often been about this whole, and which a DDA, for example, has recently started, where do you do it through some kind of town planning scheme, whereby people who are losing land are in some sense shareholders in the development process itself. But in many other cases, as Yinghong has noted, and many other scholars of land acquisition have noted, it's not until our recent land acquisition bill, which was cleared in 2013 and has since been modified by this government to some extent, that we have had a formal recognition within India's land acquisition structure of the rights of people who are project affected people, as opposed to pure landowners who were used to be compensated in previous regimes. So both on the kind of nature of people who need to be compensated and on the nature of that compensation and its link to the growth benefits that will come from the land acquisition process, there will be differences across provinces in India, across provinces in China. And the question is whether these differences, where do they emanate from? Do they lead to different degrees of success in taking the project forward? How does these perceptions build the kind of political consensus that is required for peaceful transfer of land from one user to another? It is these kinds of issues that I think Professor Huang will be addressing today. And I will ask him to begin his talk going forward, and then perhaps have a few concluding remarks when he finishes taking it there. So, Professor Huang, the floor is yours, or rather the screen is yours.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Actually, I'm so happy to see so many friends here. Unfortunately, I'm not able to present my talk in ICS due to the pandemic. But now I think the world putting us even more closer, putting us closer through the web here. And here, let me share how to share my screen. I should share my screen because I'm using share screen. Let me share my screen. That's right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let me leave meeting. No, what's this?
I cancel.
Yeah, cancel this. Okay, thank you. I put a full screen. So today's talk is about land acquisition in India and China. I use the title beyond the land acquisition regime. That means I'm thinking something alternative to the land acquisition, or maybe namely it should be compulsory land acquisition. the land development approaches in India and China. And that means I'm using another notion, like the land development instead of the land acquisition, to re-examine the practice of land acquisition in the two countries. So this is outline of my talk. I will introduce, make some brief introduction, and we come to the research methodologies, and then the main test about the multiple land development approaches in India and China, and follow up with some discussion and conclusion. So the context is this: why we compare India and China. I think there's one important things there. We see both land acquisition issue arise in the two countries at a similar time, and with similar problem. Like in China, we call land acquisition trap in this situation. So there are so many furious protests, resistance against land acquisition in India and China. We can see around a similar era, like the Xingu, around the 2007, like Wuhan, and we also see some Chinese individual citizens that set fire to themselves during the house demolition in the early years of the 21st century. So it is under this kind of the similarity which drove me to this research when I was in ICS in the year 2014. And so this presents us a very curious phenomenon, because maybe in China we may wonder that for liberal scholars, they may wonder that why land acquisition becomes so violent and so suppressive. This may be because of the nature of the political regime. But we see similar things in India. Like in some cases, police even open fire towards the protesters. So it means the regime maybe itself could not significantly explain the rise of the land acquisition in the two countries. And here we also need to understand the other things like about the land ownership. The land ownership system and land systems in India are different. China don't have the private land ownership. But this does not mean that China don't have the landed property right. Actually, during the process of neoliberalism reform in China, they set up and the government is committed to protect the property right for the citizens. So these things does mean that land acquisition, it is not compatible to both countries. But even in these two systems, so differently we see the similar phenomenon, like land acquisition arises at the same time, and land acquisition has to go on despite huge resistance against it, and the continuous reformation from the local or the national government. And also we also see vast number of the innovative local practice in India and in China. This is at least like four features we can see the similarity of India and China in the land acquisition. So here it comes with maybe, but there's another one I will focus on is why we see the land acquisition in both countries as the major means to meet the growing demand for land in the both countries, even it is for commercial usage or for development usage in the two countries. So here we see that about like some kind of protest and some governmental separation towards the protest in the two countries, even until 2017 and 2016. And then we see several rounds of the reformation in India and China. Like India, we see like the 1984 amendment, which opened the land acquisition for the use of companies, and at the same time, 30% compensation to the losers. And there are two policies here, but these two policies are not mandatory. So there it is a long discussion towards how to reform the Indian land acquisition law. But it has been no touch until 2013. It's at the time when I was visiting ICS. So it came up with a new land acquisition law, which incorporate these two policies into the act. And we see China same is there. We see like China, we have to divide into because of the difference in the land ownership, the system. Like we have to divide them into the rural land acquisition and urban land acquisition. So rural land acquisition, it is also called land acquisition.
I will wait for our speaker to rejoin. There seems to be a problem with our net connection this afternoon or evening.
I think the speaker's back, so you just have to start the screen sharing.
Yeah, I will restart again. Yeah. So this is for the reformation in China. We see at least 3 times of reformation in the rural land acquisition, which under the governance of the land management law. Now, otherwise urban land acquisition under regulation. It is called like regulation on urban housing demolition and relocation. So this is several rounds of reformation we see in both countries. But we could not see a truly dramatic decline of the land protests in the 2 countries, like China. This is the land acquisition case reported in the Yinghong peoples.com.cn. We only see like this kind of decline happens after 2014. But I believe that it is under the political pressure, political control, because after that I could not search any report, particularly like recently, about the negative aspect of the land acquisition in people.com. But we see about like these 7 rounds of the reformation has no erase, has no decrease the number of the report of the land acquisition in China until 2014. Same is in India. This is another one. It is another data is the letters and petitions about land acquisition to the Land Resource Ministry in China. We also see it there. The first piece come at the year of 2004, and then we also see a big surge at 2013. How about India? And then actually we can see one, it's really difficult for us to do systematic research on the Indian land acquisition because the lack of the data bank for that. This is one data bank which is incomplete, but it may give us some ideas of the situation of ongoing land acquisition conflicts in India by the Land Conflict Watch .org. But this is some kind of voluntary report system, so everyone can upload his cases on the line, which like combine into the data bank. So contributed to the data bank. So if we see this data bank, we see that the number of the conflicts in India has not dramatically decline after 2014. And this is the idea of the current ongoing land acquisition conflicts in India. The number is 274 cases there, involve, I think this is 3 billion people, and 700 or 800 hectares of land. Investment also very big here. So this is the idea. So that means that these 7 rounds of reformation has no change the landscape substantially of the land acquisition in India and China. So, but the key puzzle is that why people seek land acquisition as the only or the best means to meet the aggregate land demand due to the rapid economic growth. Are there other alternatives for that? Because our focus has been revolved on the perfection of the land acquisition. But here I'm presenting another idea. Maybe we can act this issue in other perspective under the notion of the land development. And then we see about why government had to intervene. You know, maybe actually both the process of the economy reformation in India and China has been labeled as neoliberalism reform. But why in this neoliberal reform, why government had to intervene? This is against the classical doctrine of the liberalism. Liberalism assumed that we should use the hidden hands on the market as possible as we can. But in the land acquisition, both countries do not follow the classical doctrine of the liberalism. Instead, they require the government to intervene and take land from the persons and give it to the enterprise or their own agents for development purpose. So in India, it has been justified by the reasons, including to minimize the transition cost because the nature of the Indians land holding pattern. Some argue that because there are thousands of land holders or land owners in 100 hectares in India. So it is very difficult for the enterprise to negotiate, to purchase directly from the landholders. And government has to step in and tax and buy land from them and transfer it to the real users, the developer, the companies. And some may say that because the social structure, if the government don't intervene, maybe it will become an exploitation by real estate mafia or by companies, because the persons are less stronger than the company and real estate in terms of the bargaining power. So that means government, the purpose of government is to protect their rights. And the third one is like for appropriate some gains for the local community or for the state, or to assess the process of the infrastructure development. This is the reasons presented by the Indian. How about China? So China, it is, people argue that actually it is shown. The first one is shown generally by Chinese scholar or Chinese official. Land supply should not be acquired and used for the private. It should be acquired and used for the public. I think it is a doctrine by Sun Yat-sen, following the Sun Yat-sen's doctrine. There's the increased value of land should be acquired by the government and should put into the public uses rather than individual uses. So this is the reason presented by the then Minister Zhou Yongkang before the People's Congress the year of 1998. Of course, some people question about it. So how about the house? The house appreciate value. When a house was sold to another one, so should the government take a 100% taxation towards him, or only 20% or 10%? So this has been questioned by like Wang Hui. Another one, it is land revenue. Yeah, land revenue, people see land revenue as a very important driver mechanism in China, German mechanism in China to the Chinese economy miracle, particularly investment in the public infrastructure. So we can see like beauty trend, you can see like the rapid expansion of roads, express, and metro in all Chinese cities because of the land revenue, which it is based on the increased value of the land after land acquisition. So it amounts to 40 to 60% of local government's revenue. That's a big number for them. But there is still some people highlight existing long land acquisition or revised land acquisition practice in the local, like the Langhai cases, like Zhou Qinian on the Sichuan's cases, and India like SEC, like SAP, and Gujarat and Tamil Nadu and some other place. But I think this has not enough. The point is we need to go beyond the discourse, the paradigm of the land acquisition, and impose a new perspective for us to understand the land development. So this is my, so we can see here about other stories. Land acquisition or land development has not only created problems in the two countries, they also create big wealth for the landowners in some situations. And then here, just I'm saying I'm proposing a new paradigm. So what is the difference there? There's some difference we have no realized cumulatively. For land acquisition, that means for the government, for the society, people may agree that for compensation is good enough. But for land development, then you have to consider one thing: who is the developer? Why we have to put the development under the hand of government rather than the locals? And how to do with the appreciable value? So these three, like these three principles has been examined fully by both countries to perfect the land acquisition. But land development, then we have to ask at least two questions: who is developer? That means who control the process of the development. And secondly, land development in this situation. Secondly, what to do with the increased value? It should be distributed amongst the stakeholders, or it should be taken away wholly by the government or by the locals. So these are essentially two questions here. If we look at the language in this way, it may lead to this dimension. And we will look the land acquisition under the perspective of the land development. Then we have to answer these two questions. And then here my research, it is use some kind of local like categorization and in accordance to these two dimensions, develops and the appreciable value. And I try to incorporate or categorize the local cases, the various local cases. As Pastor said, there are so many variations in the practice of land acquisition in both countries. And my attempt here it is to characterize, to bring us a theoretical framework to compare them. But mine, it is not it's never a methodological nationalism. I don't follow this way. That means actually, I don't see them as a land acquisition in India, land acquisition in China are two beings. This is not an idea by me. I see them as two boxes which contain so many cases before us. So me here is not a interpretation, socio-economic interpretation, or simply comparison among like convergence, divergence, similarity, community. No, I'm not answering this question, but my focus is to see them as a different kind of boss, which contain different kind of practice. And I more see them as a cases on the exploitation on the then development issue. See them as cases rather than some kind of historical, sociological analysis. And this, so here it is the framework, theoretical framework. We define the cases of the land acquisition or land development into 4 models. And this is the matrix, a theoretic matrix proposed by me. With the first dimension, it is participation. That means if the government is the only developer, it excludes the local from participating in the development, and then this is non-participative development. But if government allow the local to participate, maybe only the locals develop the project, or the local join hands with the government under multiple forms to develop the project. It is called participative. And benefit sharing, I think it's easy to understand. That means the surplus value, the appreciable value, because land development means after the development, the value increase remarkably. So how to do with the surplus value? And that's the point, that if the government share the value, admit to share the value among all stakeholders, it is benefit sharing. And if it denies it, then that means it is benefit no sharing. Under this kind of the division, it comes up with 4 models of development, land development approaches before us, theoretically. And then we examine it, we apply this matrix into the reality to see, are there really some practice fit into this module or not? And then I come back to do it one by one. The first one is exclusive development model. I term them as the present national land acquisition regime in India and China, particularly before the latest reform, because the latest reform at least admits by some extent of the benefit sharing. No, federal benefits among the stakeholders. But overall, it has not received this principle. So primary developer is the state and is parastatal is agents of state join hands with a company. And then surplus is captured by the government and as the source of the financial infrastructure. Then the land acquisition means what? Means exclusion in terms of the participation and benefit sharing. So we see about the recent reform. The recent reform, like India, actually it says that, like, of course, the usual, the previous legislation, Land Acquisition Act, 1894, it is quite unfair in terms of compensation. And there was absence of rehabilitation and resettlement in that act. Because of the registered value, it is much less than the real value. And they have nothing to do with the surplus value. So it is under compensations there. And the 2013 Act, it says that it's going to give it gives 4 times of market value for the rural land and 2 times of market value for urban land. So this development give the land users attractive compensation, and it includes a comprehensive rehabilitation and resettlement. And how about China? We see about like this. Usually the compensation, it is based on the annual output. And the 2019 amendment replaced it with a new standard by the integrated land price, and also provide them social security and training program and others. But it has no recognized the principle of the benefit sharing, and not completely incorporate in this principle in the relation laws. Like for example, if we see here, I think I explained before, like this is the some province, like the compensation rate. So it ranges about, we see here, we can this is agriculture, and this is forest. So it means they compensate in accordance to the original purpose rather than the developed purpose. So there's big gap because of the different purpose of the use of the land. So it has not compensated according to the new use. So that means the increased value would not be shared. This is the present. And then we go to the second one. Second one, it is the participative and non-sharing development. This is like the local development land and take all appreciative value, particularly and also like development in both countries. Like for India, we can see that actually Indian situation quite different from China. It's not to mention about the revenue. Even in India, I think India is using another system like property tax. But this kind of unauthorized development, the landholders, the landowners are able to escape the property taxes. So the property tax are not able to support the Indians' influential development. But we will compare to China, under the land revenue, Chinese government has such a big capability to invest in the infrastructure. And the China, but we see other, like China urban villages. So why is urban villages? It is some kind of the unauthorized development. They have no get approved from the master plan in China. And of course, at the beginning, it is tolerated by the government, or even secretly supported by government. But after some year, it generates quite some negative problems like there, like insecurity, like inadequate social infrastructure, and congestion, so on, so forth. So here is like typical scenario of the unauthorized development in China. So this is actually, that means the government are not able to take a share. The public are not able to take a share in this development. So from here, we know that at least these two models are not ideal for us, because some benefit more at the cost of the other. The third model, it is the non-participative but benefit sharing development. This is based on the local's revised land acquisition regime. So the government development, government monopoly the process of the land development, but it sure partly the benefit will be local, like Salander, Gujarat, which I visited in 2013. This table is based on my interview to 5 persons by random squeeze, by random order. And we find that actually they're quite satisfied with the land acquisition and Salander. Maybe you know the context of this like Salander. It is the NATO moved to the Salander after the resistance of the Senghur 2007. I think 2007 or 2006 or 5, that year. So I visited that village. And actually, I also had the interview with the director, the vice director of the GIDC regarding the land acquisition policies there. He told me that actually the value has been reached by negotiation between the company and the owners. And they also entrust the Agriculture University of Gujarat to assess the land price. And the land price we see here, it is sensible, is sensitive to the location. Because if we know about the land economy, particularly for the development purpose, for the urban purpose, then urban development purpose, then location is very important. And the value, measuring the value of the land. And then this system is able to be sensitive to the location. So we see that even people show the same scale of land, but their values are totally different. So this is what we can see here. Average land price, it can come around like 3 million to 1.75 million rupees per bigha. Another one, it is that China, we also see similar things, like in the Hubei and the Tibet and Yunnan, or in Yunnan also here. We see that actually this kind of projects, like development projects, like hydropower, like speed road, they are trying to give the land users some share, some equity in sharing the benefit. So we see about the compensation. This is against the general compensation delivered by land acquisition, and this is the actual compensation delivered by the new policy. So actually, it is for here. It is 44% increase, and here it is 53, or this is like 160 increase value are shared. So we can see from here actually they receive much more than the previous, and then the existing acquisition compensation. And the other one is like Shenzhen municipal government. They give in the house demolition, they give 1-to-1 ratio. That means if you give 100 square meters house to the government give you the same scale of the house after redevelopment. But the value are increased dramatically after the redevelopment. So that's the policies here. We can see that share. So that's also the reason why people in some urban regions, if they give the people the same house in the same place, the same scale of house in the same place, people welcome. People also look forward to the demolition in most cases. Let me come to the next one. And the last one here, it is the participative and the benefit sharing. So here it is the one is also most difficult one, because all the previous all the 3 previous models presume that the local should not be a part of the developer, just as the justification of the land Indians land acquisition. They worry that maybe it will be controlled by the company, it will be controlled by the mafia, and it may increase the transition cost. But here we see some extraordinary cases. Local form themselves, the joint hands with government, or themselves are able to develop the land by their own. So this doesn't mean maybe that kind of assumption is not necessarily true in the reality. So of course, through this so that they are able to participate. They are part of the developer, and through this kind of participation, they are able to take a share and increase value in the development. The first policy instrument is land pooling, like Xiamen. In Xiamen's government, they give like every land loser family, every land losing families, at least like one relocation apartment, one apartment for lease and one shop for lease. This is very attractive. But actually, because they also form some kind of a cooperative by the villagers themselves. And Gujarat town planning schedule projects. So after the development, 50, that means the landholders, the landowners, they pool their land and give it to the government. Then the government develop it. After the development, 50 to 84% of development land are returned to them. And another one is land consolidations like China, particularly in my region, like in Nanhai and Shenzhen and Foshan. There are so many cases here that the villagers join the land share holding corporations. And represented by these land share holding cooperatives, in some sense, they develop their own like industrial parks. Like example, like for Shenzhen. So Shenzhen, we see like this is some kind of the interview with previous like the head of the village in Shenzhen. She told me that actually at that time land development, there are multiple approaches for land development before 1998. So sometimes like government allow the village to do this land shareholding cooperative to form industrial park by themselves. In return, the villagers allow the government to acquire land to them. So is this some kind of consensus, unspoken consensus between government and the villagers? And also some individuals use their land, of course, is illegally to set up some fertility house. So this is like Shenzhen at that time, like before 1998, there are multiple approaches towards land development. And Foshan, it laid down some kind of the policy. 90%, 60% of land leasing fee should be used for rural development and compensation. And 60% of the net profit of the land leasing fees should be returned to the villages collectively. So they laid down two baseline for the distribution of the surplus value among the government and the local. In India, we also see quite some cases, particularly in Maharashtra and Pune, and in Pune, I think it's in Pune and also Bombay. Yeah, one case is in Bombay. This is by Balan Krishna's research in the Magapata town. I think there's only another case by Levin in Jaipur about work garden. So yeah, this is Magapata township. Magapata is same thing we see here. The villagers are able to mobilize themselves and form a cooperative, and then through that cooperative, the poor land name and take a share in the company. So 90% of cost of the company is earmarked as the cost of the land. That means people put their land, and that kind of land, it is amount to 30% of the cost of the company. And how about the effect we see there? 200 out of 280 shareholders earned income more than 4 million rupees respectively. So, and they also pay tax amount to totally amount to 100 to 120 million per year. So that means government also benefit from the taxation, and the development did happen in the place. And this kind of the policy has been also transferred to other places. So we see some other places, they came to this village to learn from them and to want them to show them, to guide them to set up similar cooperation in the other place. And then we also see here about like K special economic zone. And 80% of share of the K economic influential private limits is held by a land corporation run by persons. Another case is the Bombay, by one leader, local leader, who bring all the talents together. It is a choice development project, and they bought the land from the land owners and develop the place by themselves. So this is the case that it is a bottom-up approaches. We see an energy, the involvement of the local in the development. So here's the discussion. Yes, maybe we see at least we can see that there are multiple approaches for land development rather than acquisition. But maybe we should not say that there's one model which is applicable for all cases. Like the first model, maybe it is efficient since government will take control and effective, but it may incur resistance. But if the resistance are so fierce, then maybe it becomes stagnant. The second model, it is the local may benefit, but at the cost of the society or the government's revenue. But government revenue does not mean that actually is always bad. It is really important for investment in the social or physical infrastructure in the city. So the second, maybe it's not good, but it is maybe it is important at the beginning of the economy, like in the Shenzhen's cases. So what happened to the 1980s? The local government really don't have any income at that time. It was very poor in the 1980s Shenzhen. So that's the reason the government stand by the unauthorized development at that time. Stood by this kind of tolerate the unauthorized development at that time. The third model, it is like it benefit is shared, but sometimes you violate the land acquisition law. That means there's some incompatibility between this the third model and the existing land acquisition law, like land pooling. Now we see some cases in the Gujarat, people dissatisfied now with the land pooling practice in Gujarat, because they're saying that the new land acquisition law will give them more compensation than the land pooling practice. So this is it is the point there. Another point is that many local practice, even I see them like innovative practice, but let me be seen as some kind of the variation of the current law, like in the Chinese central government. That means the central government at least should be flexible and should be tolerant toward the ongoing practice locally. Otherwise, they will ban it. So this is what will happen in the after 2014. We find several protests has been cancelled, in China after 2014. Another last one is the module. The last module, it is this kind of the participative model. It needs quite some condition. Like, so we need to consider about the social capital in the local region, like the commercial friendly culture, like the dedicated leader, like the local authorities support. All this we need to consider. Otherwise, it could not come out. And it also, another one, it is also risky. If we allow the local to participate, what will happen if the project fail to be profitable? So it may create more problem. if not properly arranged, managed in these cases. So that means we need to consider the probability of the all modules, at least from three perspectives, three aspects. First is the purpose of project. It is merely public purpose, like for like reservation, historical reservation, or like for strategic purpose, or like diplomacy purpose. It is merely public purpose. But there's something like commercial purpose and some intermediate between public purpose and commercial purpose. And this is very controversial for the development purpose. It should be defined as a public purpose or not. Not in India, but also in China, but in US and many, many countries for this. Secondly, we need to consider it is the profitability of the project. If there is not any possibility of the profitability, it's not able to generate any profits. So what is sense to distribute the surplus value? But if it really generates some profits, then we need to consider if this profit should be distributed among the stakeholders. So this is the second point there. The third point is the local social capital. I think I already explained before, so I won't repeat here. And then we come up with this table to include my ideas here, to refer my ideas here. So that means this is the policy instruments, and this is applicable condition and suitable projects. So it means for this land acquisition, sometimes it is also important, like for non-profit projects or merely public purpose. So not necessary to participate to share benefit among stockholders. Yeah, if it is for non-profit projects or public purpose. But the second one, it is like, it is, of course, now it is illegal. So we will ban it. But maybe in the early stage of economy development, it is necessary. Yeah. And the third one, it is like for profitable projects, then we should need how to share the benefit. And if the place it is have quite some social rich social capital, maybe we should consider how to mobilize, how to allow the participation of the locals. And here it is like here. That means actually the point here is this: not come up with a general model of the land development in the two countries, but come up with my conclusion. But how to apply different policy instruments under different conditions, and the based on the local conditions. So that's the conditions we need to replace. So that means we need to a shift or paradigm. A paradigm, it is imperative from the land acquisition to land development. That means land development open up our eyes to more possibility of the practice to me, the practice to the development issue in the two countries, land development issue in the two countries. And the second one is the in terms of the we should keep in mind like if it's possible to build in the benefit sharing or participation in the land development, in this kind of like massive land development projects in both countries. Whenever it is possible, maybe we should apply them. And the last one is that I would like to use the notion of experimental governance. That means the governance is not necessarily that one thing that has been goes through the central legislation, but we should give the place. Maybe it is necessary to give the place to the local to practice, to do experiment, to find a suitable model which is best for their context. So this is what we say about experimental governance. That means maybe the focus on the imperfection of the land acquisition legislation in both countries is far from good enough. And maybe some new laws or some new frameworks should come up to allow this kind of the experimental governance in the two countries. So my conclusion is that maybe the best model is the one who fits to the local condition. This is my talk here. Okay, I finish here. Thank you. Some of my
Thank you so much, Yinghong. And since we are running close into time, let me check if there are questions that have come up.
Okay.
And if there are people who would like to have some questions. In the meantime, I think one of the key points made by Professor HUANG is the variety of approaches that are possible. And therefore, the second following from that would be the issue of in order to implement that variety, you need much more local government control over the process. And whether or not that is actually feasible would, of course, depend on the governance system of the country. I see Solly has a question. Solly, would you like to unmute yourself and ask it directly?
Yes, question. HUANG Beirut.
Yeah, hi, I'm Solly Benjamin from IIT Madras. I thank you very much for a really very interesting talk. And having been to Shenzhen twice and in two very different times, I wanted to ask you about specifically about what you explained very well, the early forms of Shenzhen government in the 80s. And I just was curious to see that before the big modernist kind of architectures that came up, the industrial districts, what you mentioned, was the present one where there is this big electronic market. Was that part of the older districts, or did that come up much later? I just wanted to...
okay. I have to say that first that I have not conducted any research on the HUANG issues, but actually I used to work in that district and as a civil servant, so I know about some history of that kind of development. And these things is also happening in current Shenzhen. You see, we see the second round of urbanization, 7 rounds of urbanization in Shenzhen. That means actually we look at the 1980s. There was a village. So actually, the beginning at that time, we know that there is like cooperative. The villagers they have a cooperative, so they build up some kind of the new buildings like industrial parks there. But after some year, like maybe 1990s or the late 1990s, they encounter the urban renewal, like reconstruction. So after that, I think now that what we see it is developed by the government. But before that, there's some kind of industrial parks there. There was some kind of industrial parks there, which was developed maybe by the locals or maybe by the at that time they have some kind of the cooperates themselves. Yeah.
So it sort of moved from one section to another of your system, and therefore you can see that some of these things will evolve over time. I think Professor Mohanty had a question.
Yeah.
Hello, Yinghong. Good to hear your lecture. That was wonderful. Yeah. Now, firstly, on your methodology, I'm quite struck by your methodology, which is really sort of a comparative method on thematic focus within a political economy, basically. But there, my question is, you are talking about the paradigm as well as some selected indicators, participation and benefit sharing. But do they derive from the paradigm? That is, if the paradigm aims at flexibility at the local level, and does it extend to local decision-making power also? In other words, who decides the public purpose? Now, for example, in India, you know, under the PESA Act, in the tribal areas, the tribal panchayat has to, in fact, Gram Sabha has to approve whether an industry is to be located, whether land has to be ceded, and so on. And under the 2013 law, also partly that was granted, but only partly. In other words, is it participation in a formal way or participation in an institutional way that really gives the decision-making power to define what is public purpose to the local? You know, that's why when we take a paradigmatic approach and some selected items for thematic comparison, like these two concepts that you have taken and a four-model framework you have developed, very interesting. But I see that you know, the political power of the local community or the local government is not sufficiently built into the model. That's my first comment. Second, you know, you have observed the critique of the Indian anti-displacement movements of the you know, this entire land acquisition process, and to some extent also in China we have heard similar complaints. So the key thing is that it is a top-down model, that you need land for what the center decides as national development. In fact, that was why the present regime wanted to change the 2013 law, and it gave up after, you know, after hue and cry. But several BJP-ruled states have passed those laws, and they are going ahead, even during the pandemic period, going ahead with permitting such projects. In other words, the top-down development model is the key factor here, and therefore benefit sharing, which, by the way, the World Bank's very powerful you know, land use group conceptualized benefit sharing in a particular way. I think yours is slightly broader. Therefore, it's I think the you know, the people's movement's discourse on land question for projects has to be respected, especially keeping in view local people's power over their land, and they seek the right to decide how to use that land. Otherwise, in China, the village committee leaders, particularly the party-led village committee, goes by the party diktat from above. I'm glad you have the general conclusion that you are not satisfied with either of the systems. That's true, but it is, I mean, how to integrate your model to the basic development debate about the overall strategy of development. That's my second comment. Thank you. I really enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you. Yinghong would like to respond?
Yeah. Thank you for your comment. Yes, it's true. Yeah, I think your question, the first question is the following like topic for me to do research, how to build this kind of the participation, like from the maybe the central government, the legislation level, legislative level, or maybe from the state government, how to stimulate this kind of the participation of the local in the land development. But I think for us, the point is we need to change the doctrine. Like we believe that actually land acquisition means that government would take control, monopoly in the land development, and we leave the decision to the government. And what need to do is just government give us like attractive compensation or fair compensation. But I think this is not enough. And instead, the problem there is that we don't consider, we neglect the importance of local as the potential like developer. Like so that means maybe the point is that we need maybe the most important for us to empower them, to give them the right to deny or even ask them, or maybe negotiation, through discussion, negotiation, and between interaction, some kind of interaction between government, locals, central government, locals, and like subnational government, and even the society. But the point is to break that kind of dominant discourse of land acquisition, and this give us more possibilities here. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yinghong, just a quick, one of the issues that you brought together was the different kinds of model for your different kinds of projects. And one of the issues in both participation and benefit sharing, as Professor Mohanty was pointing out, is the actors who will take that role. In Magarpatta, you had a group which came together, and Sai's work shows how that group was both inclusive of certain kinds of populations as well as exclusive of other kinds of populations, which because of the social differentiation which is there in India. Now that kind of social differentiation is not there that much in China, and you do have that notion of the urban village. But even in urban village redevelopment in a place like Shenzhen, you would have the differentiation between the owners and the renters, and therefore the compensation that is available to the two groups in structures going forward. So, so one of the issues that I was trying to understand is when you think of this whole process of compensation, how does intra-population issues get counted? You know, because how is the sharing within the village, how is the sharing within the community taken care of? Because there are different groups within each community. The second issue that would be interesting for you to have a comment upon is in both India and China, obviously we're both growing countries, and therefore the chances of success of projects and therefore getting benefits is high. But in some cases, and especially now in India, we see, and also perhaps in China, given the kinds of setbacks we have had, some of these projects may not, you might acquire the land and start a project, the project may not succeed. And so instead of benefit sharing, it becomes a loss sharing proposition for the people. And these are not people who are very able to bear such losses because they are not particularly rich. So how do you, in your way of thinking, how do we address these two kinds of issues?
Okay, yeah, I understand that. So there are some research highlights that like in India, like particularly the caste system, maybe the landless, maybe the Dalits, they suffer more. Even that kind of the project, it is also like fits into my last module, like participative and learning. But maybe because they don't own any land, they don't even hold the land, so they are Dalit and they are landless, so they are not able to benefit from the land acquisition or land development. But this, I think, the point is that we need to go even first of all. We could not expect land acquisition to solve all the questions, all the issues in the society. So land acquisition issue cannot solve this kind of the like social inequality or economic inequality in both countries. But the point is we can able to do at least one thing. We build and some mechanism to introduce the social equality or economic equality to the locales. To the locales, like for the landlords, maybe for the wage laborers, for the agricultural laborers. Maybe we can give the decision to the local to decide. Maybe they can take a small share in that kind of situation. So it depends on how collective the local to make a decision to consider the benefit, the interest of the landlords, the daddies, or the tribes. So these is things that we can do in this. I mean, from scholarly, from this point, we are able to solve them. But the point is that how to make them if that kind of structure, social structure, is so unequal, and how to make them believe that it is good for them to bring in this kind of mechanism to also include the marginalized groups. This is the most difficult thing, but not in the policy level, because it is possible, really. They're able to share them if the project is really profitable. Second is about the risk. Yes, the benefit sharing, the participating, it is not applicable to that kind of some kind of the projects, which we also see some cases when the projects fail, then maybe people become more poor after that kind of the failure of the project. So it is also accompanied with risk in the participative or beneficial projects. But actually, the points there, it is the mainstream, which you say that it have to look into the details, because these two countries actually overall their land price in terms of land development are keeps growing in most cases. So that means you have to look into the details to see the possibility of the probability, and we have to examine very carefully before you want to incorporate them, want to like involve the locals' participation and share the benefit with them. Otherwise, maybe you have to use land acquisition in the place. But it depends on the project. You know, if that project that it is a big real estate project in a remote place, and then maybe in China we call it like the third line cities. And this is thing I won't encourage them to do that. It's very risky. But if it is in some kind of the central city, and we see very high possible of the very increase, then there's no problem. But this is also, that's why we said that there's always risk here. Even you use the land acquisition, it may come up with another problems there. Yeah.
Thank you. Professor Mohanty, you had
no, I just wanted to continue this discussion. Partha, you suggested, and on that I will ask a question. Partha, you suggested that in China, unlike in India, I mean, the benefit sharing is likely to be more even. I would sort of qualify that. I think the just giving a flat or an additional flat for lease and a shop facility or some kind of a compensation, is not enough, because the new differentiation in rural China also takes full advantage of this investment, the land investment, and the new land mafia in alliance with the village leaders. They are in league with the investors, and so the question, and this is what I will ask Yinghong to respond. Has this been built into the new policy amendment in 2019 that it shall not further In other words, does it have elements, the new policy, does it have elements that will reduce inequality? In other words, give additional opportunities to the less privileged, particularly the the poorer sections, relatively poorer sections in the village, by giving them some additional benefits and so on. In other words, because in India, it has actually accentuated inequalities. The unorganized labor continues, and the old land related income has disappeared, and so on. So what is the Chinese situation?
Okay, yeah, maybe I will answer this in two aspects. The first one, it is for the new management law, which has been amended in 2019 last year. Actually, it admitted the practice of the provision of social security or to cover all the land losers. Whatever the scale of the land they lose, they are under the protection of social security in China, which include like medical security or some kind of the stipend for them, or pension for them, and also they give them some training program. And this is the by the law, by the provision, we said that in this way, they provide them in this way. In terms of just following the past questions, actually in China, we find that actually that means participation does not mean that actually the benefit comes to all the individuals. In Chinese case, actually they divide into at least two sessions. One session come to your own pocket, individual, families pocket. Another one, it is poured into the village, the cooperative, as some kind of the management income for that kind of for kind of villages to cover like disabled, for color to the weaker section and the village. So I think these things why we cannot do in India. If we are really see as a community, and we give the community the power to join to decide the land development, and they are able to provide some protection to the landless, to the debtors, on the as long as they really want to do so, or maybe the government force them to do so. It can be solved. I mean, for this case.
Thank you. It is actually one of the interesting innovations in that is the district mineral fund, where you take a certain payment from the mining companies and put it in a common fund, which is then supposed to be spent on improving these kinds of infrastructure, especially that could help communities in that area. There are many issues around the use of that district mineral fund, but it is a mechanism that is in some sense been created precisely for this purpose. And here the issue of political participation and demand and structure becomes an important issue. I think there was also a final question from Haiqing Zhang. Would you like to have that ask that directly?
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, Yinghong.
Yeah. Hello, Professor.
Very
yeah.
pleased. Very pleased to hear your research again. I remember maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I heard your proposal for this research, right? For this project. Yeah. I think you have developed a very good job for a very important issue. So I'm so delighted to hear on this webinar. And I have 2 questions about your research. Just hearing. First one is very interesting. You developed a 4 typology of the LA or from LA to LD. But I was wondering if that basically can cover all the main cases in both countries based on based on maybe your direct research or maybe also indirect research by other scholars. Secondly, I was wondering, it seems from this research you told us more similarity of the two countries. But I wonder, especially the former professor raised the question about the locals, the roles of the local both government people or the businessmen. I was since also teaching comparative politics, especially very interested in India and China as a comparison. So I was wondering, in India, although indirectly I know it seems to me more marketing and more democratizing, right? Democrats in Indian. So why Indian cannot develop a better solution for the land acquisition? Okay, that's maybe my two questions. Thank you again.
Thank you. Let me just quickly ask if anybody else has any question, because then I'll have Professor Huang answer them all together and conclude. So if there's anybody else who wants to ask a question at this point in time? No? Okay. So Professor Huang, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Professor Zhang, for the kind comment and the questions. Yeah, if this kind of typology covers all cases, I think this thing I could not answer, because it depends on how you build up the kind of theoretical matrix. I think this theoretical matrix, it is complete. That means like maybe it should include all the cases. Otherwise, that means there's some problem with this kind of serialization and dividing them into two dimensions. I mean, this is theoretically, but you in the reality, I think there should be some other perspective. Maybe we need to add into. So that means this is a process of simplification, which just focus on the benefit sharing or participation. I look into these two dimensions only, but there are also so many other dimensions which has not included in the discussion. So that means in reality it is not complete, but theoretically is complete, because there's no other possibility in my matrix here. This is about the first question. Second question, I think maybe the Indian scholars here can answer better than me, but I will try to answer in this way. China or India who solve the land acquisition better. For me, when I say China or when I say India, I will see them as maybe we're talking about Chinese national government or Indian's national government. Because as I said in my one slide about the converse comparison, that means actually we see every cases as some kind of concurrency of the global global factor, national factor, and subnational factor. There's some kind of confluence of all these factors. So we are able to say this special case. So I mean, methodologically, I don't see India as one or China as one. This is my methodology. I don't see them as one. So, and there are not enough data for us to assess which one really perform better in these two countries, because the letter of the mega beta band for that. So all we see is just one case and other cases. They're incomplete for us to make assessment on their overall performance in India or in China. This is the big issues here, the lack of the data bank. Another one is but maybe we should say that if I said that, but all this kind of argument is arbitrary, because only based on my own perception only. Maybe we can admit one thing, that at least your question highlight one thing. Maybe marketing. For the marketing, I don't see Indians then market. It is very well developed. I visited in a place like Nandigala in West Bengal. There's no any land market there. I asked them how to buy a land, how to buy a plot of land here. People show that you just tell people, I want to buy a land. And some people tell that you go to somebody. There's nothing like agents, there's nothing like price. Because at that time I wanted to know about the price. And Nandigala, which located in West Bengal, in a rural place, or a merely rural place. So there's no land market in that place. And I asked them, what happened? Some people really want to sell his land. People tell me that some people might kill him. Some people might kill him if he tell people that he will sell a land. I think this is kidding, but it is also highlight importance of the uneven existence of the land market in India. It depends on what region. Maybe in the West Bengal, there is no prevalent practice of the land market, and maybe in the Gujarat, Maharashtra, we can see a rich and effective land market there. In terms of democratization, then we need, and this means it may involve in the process and the interpretation, in the interpreting the process of the land acquisition, democratization. That means actually maybe we should say that Chinese land acquisition is much more suppressive, and it is difficult to mobilize or to win the protest against the land acquisition in China. Many cases already highlight this, but maybe in India, a democratic country in India, it's easier to stop a project than the Chinese. So I could say in Spain in this way. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any?
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
My own, I think if nobody has any other questions, I think we can conclude this here now.
I think Professor Zhang
with respect to the, yes, Hai-Ching, we would like to come back with a response. If you're asked,
I was wondering if any professor from Indians could answer the question about their democratization, and if I'm really hopeful to hear more.
Sure.
Since,
let me take a chance and conclude with that, unless fundamentally, if you look at the issue, it is about the extent of trust in the state, right? And until the state is seen not as an instrument of expropriation, which is often seen in the case of land acquisition, but as a fair arbiter, as a referee, as a neutral player, you most probably are going to have some degree of conflict. Now, the way the state gains that confidence, I think, is by repeated demonstration that it is actually a fair referee. And it is here, I think, what Yinghong's work is showing, that in certain areas, we will end up in a situation where that demonstration of good intent creates that level of trust and therefore allows for a lot more constructive solutions to emerge. Whereas in other areas, that level of trust is not there, and therefore you're locked into certain odd kinds of structures. I think Solly is indicated that he would also like to respond to you. So I'll hand it over to him, and then that would be Solly, if you can just keep that answer relatively crisp, I'll have that, and then we can conclude this webinar.
Yeah, thank you, Partha. This is just a very quick response to maybe open up a longer conversation we can do online, or hopefully at some point meet up. But I think the way, as Partha said, that the way local governments, and here we talk mainly at the municipal, but also like a federated village level, their response to land management is really quite varied. And in some cases, there has been what we would call as a kind of form of democratization, where they push through, because land is a state subject at the regional level, but they push through flavors of land regularization, which vary from place to place. So Madhya Pradesh, for example, has had a longer history since the 80s of pushing for some form of, it's not land pooling, because those are town planning schemes, or land pooling is specific to particular states in terms of like Maharashtra, Gujarat, whether they pass the law or not. So I feel this is a very interesting, but it's also a complicated question. And as Professor HUANG mentioned, that you have to really get into the details of the local politics and looking at the actual administrative procedures, because what is passed in law is only one very, very brief kind of overview. Unless one gets into the details, then we can actually address these really important question about the politics of democratization and how it's unevenly spread. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And so thank you so much. Thoughtful and thought-provoking talk. It was a pity that it had to be done in this framework, but it may also have allowed a lot more people from across the world to attend it and benefit from it. And of course, there will be people who will be looking at it on the ICS's YouTube channel. And thank so much to the ICS team for making this quite seamless, despite the short breaks that we had to endure. And my apologies for taking this a little over time. I hope that will not be too much of a problem. So thank you very much, and good evening, good night, or good morning, wherever you are.